We are live here with a new friend, a fellow viewer of the Hard News Network and the Hard Bastard, Lenin McCarthy. His channel is called Lenin McCarthy on YouTube, and you can find him in
Hi.
all social media. Uh, so that's one of the funniest nicknames I've always thought about it. Lenin McCarthy is
Yeah,
perfect. Yeah.
I kind of
That,
got radicalized by the election and the aftermath. But when the actual election happened, like it was starting to happen. I was starting to mutate. I hadn't turned into Lennon McCarthy yet, but I was, I was like, what the fuck is going? Like, I was just, my mind was getting fucked because I was an asleep Democrat literally until 2016. I was just an asleep Democrat, and like by the time after the Trump derangement, after 2017, he was sworn in, and it continued, and it never let up to this day. That's what threw me into Lennon McCarthy and sort of radicalized me. It was the Russia stuff was so stupid. The first time I heard it in like summer of 2016, the first time I heard the Russian conspiracy, the vast Russian conspiracy, I was like, this is some Rocky and Bullwinkle bullshit. And I thought it was going to go away in 2 weeks. I thought it wouldn't fool a 5-year-old, and here we are. So.
yeah, I mean, you don't have to feel bad about awakening recently, because I think it was Al Gore who made
Better
me.
late than never. I know. I mean, I
Yeah.
got friends and family members that are still asleep.
Oh my God.
I
You have
voted
no
for Al
idea,
Gore.
man. My family. I don't even talk about my family, but it's the same thing here.
Yeah.
Um, what I think is is pretty funny though is that there's so many people who I'm like a Rand Paul supporter, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things that Trump does that I support, but people consider me like a massive like hard ass Republican or whatever. I've never belonged to any party. And it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of ironic because the topic we're talking about today is the what I've been calling the Farrakhan feminism, which is
Yes.
I've done about 3 videos of it, and thanks for giving it the attention that you can,
Sure.
and sharing it, because I really think
Yeah.
that this is a bigger issue. So what do you think about the broader theme of what I was talking about there?
Um, yeah. Well, I absolutely. Politically, I'm on the same page with you. In terms, and I really think it shows how nutty it's the left in quotes. There is a bigger coalition where it's more, but then they're a little wacky too. More of a legitimate left, and then there's also the left in quotes, which is mostly Democrats and neoliberals. But then there's some weird like far left that's a coalition with. But yeah, they're wacky. It's a gigantic tent, but it's like a circus tent with sideshows in it. If we got radical feminism, we got radical Islam, we're pretending that that's compatible and shit, like next to each other at the Women's March, and it's bonkers.
Yeah, I think like the what I was trying to point out, and in my last video I really talk about it, is that in the criticism that they're leveling at Tamika Mallory, who is a Women's March board member, they're focusing on the anti-Semitic aspect of Louis Farrakhan. Now, first of all, Louis Farrakhan has said things that are technically Islamophobic, talking about Arab or Arabophobic, talking about Arab shopkeepers. Haven't really gone into that. He said things that are very, very sexist. That a woman who can't cook shouldn't have kids. He said things that are very anti-Catholic. He said things that are a lot of things that are very, very they're not very inclusive and intersectional.
See,
But yet they get a huge pass. Um,
yeah,
well,
because he's in the tent, and I guess he has a lot of followers. And he's in the tent, and that's why he gets a pass, I think. Plus, they
the
also,
irony
even
is
though
that,
he,
yeah,
oh, sorry, but he's a different thing. Like, it's not the same thing as like Islam from the Middle East. That's a little bit different than what he does. With the Nation of Islam, it's a little bit different. But they have, this tent with the Women's March and Democrats and liberals. They have radical Islam in there, even if they don't say it's radical Islam, because they have some Sharia law and shit in there. And like in England, what happened with the people not being allowed in and being held up, that I think when when they push it out there that not even is it politically incorrect to criticize Islam or Muslims. It's not just politically incorrect. No, it's illegal. It's against the law. That sounds a little bit like Sharia law to me. You know what I mean? where it's like you're
Yes, and
not allowed to criticize it. And so they already have that shit in the tent. So Louis Farrakhan, he fits right in, unfortunately. Because I think, you know, you already have a bunch of radical, crazy shit. And that, you know, there's other stuff too. And, you know, in this big circus tent.
yeah, I think there's some skipping going on. I don't know what happened.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
In
think I
any
can hear you. Okay.
case, so what I've been trying to do, and anybody who's watching this, please join in. And you know, I've spread it on Discord and whatever.
Oh, I see if I
There,
can tweet it.
yeah, there has to be more attention to Farrakhan feminism. That's what I'm calling it. Farrakhan feminism basically says that anybody who is not on board with basically the Women's March is not a real feminist. But if you are, like if you're Louis Farrakhan, yeah, absolutely, you know, by all means, you don't have to actually believe that women have equal rights in the household, which I
No,
thought,
and
I
then
mean,
well, yeah, sorry.
yeah, yeah. What do you think? Here's a question. What do you think feminism means, man?
Well, listen, there's more than one. Are you asking me, or is that rhetorical? Or,
Well,
I
in any
think
case,
there's more than one
anybody,
definition. There's more than
I
one.
always thought
The
feminism meant that
best, the
women.
best, nicest, like if I'm trying to make it a positive thing, the best aspect of it is for women's equality and rights. That's the best possible aspect of what feminism might be. But then there's, you know, there's a dark side too.
Yeah, and what I always
Where it's
thought,
kind
like,
of, there's a lot of man hating, and it ties right in with sort of the identity politics, intersectionalism, like just like, and it's the divisiveness that, you know, the oligarchs or whatever that are up at the top, you know, 9 out of 10 of those are like some white men, and they're pulling the strings, and they're just, you know, people are fighting with each other. It's just it's not even organic. It's bullshit. Like, I know that there might be like some black people that are upset about black issues and they're totally sincere. I understand that. But the people pulling the strings above them don't give a fuck about that, because people are being manipulated. You know, some of them are paid off, but a lot of them are brainwashing.
yeah, it's like the Women's March sponsored by Midas. That's basically what it is. Like some sort of and what I always thought feminism is simply the you know, the most distilled thing would be that women have the right to have a voice in public affairs. That's what I think
Yeah.
is at least, and Farrakhan, you know, I don't think that he's you know, entirely sexist, but by the standards of the Women's March, he would be considered a
Yeah.
dinosaur. The man is
He's old fashioned. You know, if you I was just thinking about, like, to me, like, okay, the word like feminism and misogynism, the two get mixed up because they're both just coming from Hillary Clinton, and it's bullshit, you know. But it's not exactly the same thing, because misogyny is more of a serious thing than misogyny is like anti-woman, whereas like sexism can be some old-fashioned shit that a lot of feminists are going to disagree with, but it doesn't mean that the person hates women. You know what I mean? That, like, there's sort of a difference there. And you can call it maybe chauvinistic, like the old, like, 1950s stuff, but it's not like people that hate women. It's people that are old-fashioned more. And where a feminist would say, like, they're a sexist.
well, the word that you're looking for is patriarchal, and patriarchal.
Yeah. I mean, that's
what
fair.
they hate.
Like, Farrakhan is totally patriarchal. Yeah, that's
the Women's
fair.
March hates patriarchy, so he would be the complete opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I just think, I mean, yes, if I was like a feminist, the first words would be like sexist or misogynist, but I'm not. So I'm saying that it's old fashioned. It is patriarchal. You know, you can call it chauvinistic or something, but anyway, that's the idea.
Yeah, I'm definitely,
because there are a lot of women that are on board with it too. That's why I'm saying more like I see it as more of an old fashioned thing, because you see the women agreeing with it and it's happening. But still, you see like conservatives that they have the family values thing, and then there are a lot of women that agree with that. And I don't think it's necessarily invalid to say, like, you know, we have this traditional family structure. And in a sense, I think some of what Farrakhan is saying, I think, is positive to an extent, because you look at like the black community and like family situation, you know, not every family, but like the urban, what we're talking about, you know, that situation, a lot of times the father isn't there and he's promoting family values. And I think that resonates with like his audience. And I think that aspect is good. But then he says, you know, he says anti-Semitic stuff. And I think it's a little bit, you know, cultish.
Yeah, I think
he's more of a religious leader than a political leader, really. It's more of like, he's more of like a religious leader, in my opinion. I mean, he's both.
What I noticed after watching all that footage is that he has incredible charisma. He is talented. By the way, he's a very talented musician, by the way, Farrakhan. And I personally don't care about feminism at all. So I don't care. I've said in my videos he has a right under the First Amendment to say whatever he wants, but that there's a difference between that and having a Women's March board member affiliated with him, going to his rallies. You know, they're all about inclusiveness. They're all about, oh, we're against Islamophobia. We're for tolerance. Everybody should just love one another and whatever. You look at the guy's statements, you know, saying that chemicals cause people to become, you know, feminize men and whatever. You know, sometimes he sounds like one of us. Or he sounds right. He sounds exactly. Why should we? You know, he sounds less like one of them, and sometimes more like one of us. One of us.
Yeah, exactly.
People, yeah.
Well, there's a cognitive dissonance. So I think we both agree that you know, the Islam that comes out of the Middle East there organically and the Nation of Islam are kind of a little bit two different things, but you can group them together sometimes. But
yeah, absolutely.
I think we both agree on that point, that distinction. But what was I going to say? Well, that's funny. Okay, so I forgot what I was going to say there, but I was reminded of something that I knew a guy who was okay, I want to say black Muslim, but he wouldn't call himself that. But that's like, he's an American black guy, and not like the Islam that's out of the Middle East. So, but anyway, it was a little confusing. I was a security guard at the time. It was years ago, and there was another dude who was there in the same room, and this guy was his parents were Indian, and he was a Muslim, like born and raised Muslim, with Indian background. And so the black American guy was like talking. And, you know, he was like, I forget what the hell he was talking about. Something to do with the religion. Like he wouldn't eat chewing gum because it had pork in it or something like that. I don't remember. But the religion came up, and I said something to him about being a Muslim. And he's like, I'm not a Muslim. I'm Islamic. And I was like, what? And I turned to the other guy who's Indian, who's a Muslim. I'm like, isn't that the same thing? And he's like, yeah, as far as I know. I don't know what he's talking about. So I think he was more, I don't know if he followed Farrakhan or not, but he was more like that type of thing. And I think, you know, I think that it's sort of more, he's like a religious leader.
Well, I spoke to Tariq.
And it is kind of like a cult.
Yeah, there are cult-like aspects, but I spoke to Tariq last week, Tariq from Texas, name withheld. And he does listen to Farrakhan. And I think people can listen to whoever they want and whatever. But yeah, there's aspects of the Nation of Islam that are appealing to people because of the family dynamic issues and things like that. But what you're talking about, I'm actually going to get into tomorrow. So there's a little teaser that people who disaffiliate with the Nation of Islam, or who get, you know, a little testy with them, they don't have such a nice ending sometimes. It's not very.
Oh yeah,
it can get a little sticky.
What I forgot I was going to say before was that, okay, so we'll group together for the moment. We'll take like the Nation of Islam and regular Islam, and we'll sort of put them together for the moment. And both of them, just look at them, look at their values and what they promote. They're extremely, extremely conservative, what you might call right-wing, extremely traditional, more so than the most right-wing conservative Christians in the United States. But then the left acts like, oh no, it's all about inclusiveness and having 53 genders and blah, blah, blah. And we're here next to like the Sharia people and having a party. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then you know, the Muslims are just like, yeah, we're sort of happy to be in the tent. Yeah, we hate gays and shit, but yeah, we'll defend us. We'll call everybody it's Islamophobic or it's a racist. That's even, you can't criticize a religion or you're a fucking racist. How crazy is that?
We're getting a comment from the chat from Floyd and
What?
Pink from New Zealand. He's asking, "Are you guys in the same room?" The bookshelf thing is selling it. So I
They're
get
both like fucked up looking.
everybody makes fun of my
It's the
bookshelf.
same
I actually
lighting. It's like we're like twin brothers.
yeah, I
Yeah,
put
it's like
here.
a CNN when they have a split screen and it's supposed to be in two different like wave over it like in the next thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're brothers.
yeah, it does look like the end of my bookshelf could go into. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
I
Um,
remember. Yeah.
but back to our topic. What I've been talking about Lenin McCarthy for about, I want to say, it's coming up on a year in the summer. I've been talking about the Anti-Defamation League, which I think is a disgrace of an
Yeah.
organization. They don't actually help anybody. I think they create more hatred against Jews than they
Democrats
fight.
and neoliberals. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
They're
It's
just
like
in
I think that
bed. They're just in arm. I'm sure that they've done good work. Just other organizations have been good in the past, but opted either like the Clinton campaign or just their buddies or Soros or whoever the fuck those people, and they're just like an arm of them, just like Snopes is, just like most media is. It's just an arm of those people who are assholes.
Listen, if you read that article, I'll send it to you. It's on the Hard News website now, but it's actually.
I think so. I mean, maybe they're independent of them, but they're on the exact same page.
Yeah. So I have it in the description. If you read that article, it is pretty long, so you can read partially the way through. I guarantee you, maybe come back in a couple days and we can discuss it. But you will see that the ADL used to have a very noble mission, and it's basically betrayed it. It's if we're talking about civil rights organizations, they should be defending civil liberties, right? And they're not doing it now. They're actually
even
the
ACLU, it seems like it's turned a little Democrat.
Oh yeah. By the way, the ACLU,
they're not nearly as bad, but they're turning sort of Democratish.
the ACLU in the 70s, they were on the opposite side of the ADL. Yeah, they were much more civil libertarian, and I think they were on the right side at the time.
That was like their whole point. I thought, like I thought they were always defending the First Amendment, free speech, for example. I thought that's what their whole deal was, and then they were sort of turning a little bit neoliberal lately, though. I think.
Absolutely, I think that. But by the way, like Jonathan Greenblatt, who's the head of the ADL, used to be an Obama advisor. He was an advisor on nonprofit organizations, and so a lot of these other organizations like the NAACP and GLAD, and what's the other big one, the SPLC, are like you said, they're fronted by neoliberal leaders, and
Poverty Law Center. I think that's like the biggest joke out of all of them. It's like just some sort of weird. It's like, what is it, like Debbie Wasserman Schultz running it or something? It's like ridiculous. I mean, it's just like everything. I think they just put out bullshit. I think she might. It's just like, it seems like a Clinton, like a corrupt Clinton operation pushing out bullshit. Like that's all they do. That's literally why they exist.
Did you see what they did with Tim Pool?
I heard something. He was in the news. He was kicked off of something, or
no, he wasn't kicked off anything. But they featured an article about him where they said he visited Iran and was at a Holocaust denial conference, and he was I actually put out, I don't know if you saw it, but I put out another video yesterday. I said these people who keep getting smeared by the SPLC should sue them.
I don't understand. The stuff with Russiagate is so out of control, ridiculous. There have been a couple of lawsuits, but there's been so much slander against Trump, and he has to deal with it mostly politically. Not just against him. I mean, like I said, a couple people sued, but I would think everybody would be suing to shut up this fake news, because I didn't think you could just go on the news and just spread lies about me. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's I mean, we have Bandsaw Bandit asking about Michelle Obama being a tranny per Alex Jones. Well, I mean, if you're able to call Tim Pool, if you're saying that Tim Pool was in Iran,
I'm not going to rule it out. I'm not 100%.
Right. I mean, it has more credibility than the SPLC bulletins.
It's more likely to be real than Russiagate.
Right. And we'll talk about Russiagate.
I'm open-minded. I'm not saying she's definitely not you know, biologically female or whatever. But I'm not saying that's definite. I'm saying, hey, I don't know, maybe.
Well, I mean,
You know, I'm open.
Let's put
It's
out
possible. I don't know.
let's lay the gauntlet down. Let's just say, you know, Michelle
If we had
Obama,
to
if you're
bet,
listening, if this is true, wouldn't this be a trend-setting moment? She would be the first
she should
male
just
first
call in
lady.
like right now when we go to like a split screen. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. But yeah, it's hard enough not getting banned as it is. So I think we better we better go back to the agenda. And anyway, so for the viewers, you know, I'll just explain to the viewers, Len McCarthy, who's my guest. Lenin McCarthy has a YouTube channel, but I'm just going to explain to the viewers the whole issue here. Tamika Mallory, for those of you that do not know, is one of the national organizers of the Women's March. Let me see if I can find a photo of her. And she went to the Savior's Day rally, which is the annual big event for the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam is basically it's an organization that Malcolm X once was affiliated with when he was alive, and later he left it and was by many sources assassinated by some of its members, and now it's headed by uh, Minister Louis Farrakhan, and there are very many credible reports that he was behind that assassination of Malcolm X, who I consider to be one of the more you know, interesting and brilliant leaders of that era, because I read his autobiography, a fascinating book talking about growing up in Nebraska and Detroit and going through prison and everything. Well, many of the credible reports show that it was Farrakhan and Elijah Muhammad's followers from the Nation of Islam that murdered him. So Tamika Mallory, why are they giving her heat? Why are they giving her shit over this? Because they're saying it's anti-Semitic. But if you actually examine Minister Farrakhan's history, he said things that are negative about not just Jews, but about women, about Catholics, about gay people, about trannies, transsexuals, as they said when I was a child. In my day, they said transsexual. I always say that. You know, that's basically the controversy here. So I've made three. Well, I guess this would be technically the fourth, but this is the second live stream, and I've made a number of videos already, and I'm going to put out another one tomorrow about some of the seedier stuff with Louis Farrakhan. But the first one is about how Democratic politicians refuse to disaffiliate with the Nation of Islam because they do have a very powerful constituency in Indianapolis and Chicago and a number of cities. And also about the Women's March and how they won't disaffiliate from him. Today was talking about these squirmy activists like the Pop Chassid. His name is Elad Nehareh. You know, some of these left-wing people that they're not quite comfortable saying, you know, the Women's March is affiliated with shit, and they don't want to give it up yet. And then, you know, Sally Cohn from CNN starts saying, well, you know, I mean, I know all sorts of people who say hateful shit. What's the problem? Well, that's not what they said during Charlottesville. So yeah, Lennon, did you see that part? Did you get to see that video?
My best friends are Nazis. What's the problem? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, I've had what's the funniest part was when she said she considers Tamika Mallory a close friend.
I mean, who cares?
Yeah. She said Tamika Mallory is a close friend.
There are like murderers in the like Women's March, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have had white nationalists on this show. You know, I've given them the respect I give everybody, but I don't really consider them my friends. You know, I consider them people that I talk to, but you know, she said Tamika Mallory is a close friend. Well, Tamika Mallory thinks that you're the spawn of Satan, Sally Cohn. So, or at least her, you know, Minister Farrakhan does. So, what do you think? Can you compare this saga with Charlottesville? I mean, I remember a very different reaction to Charlottesville.
Well, okay, Charlottesville was like a whole thing. And if I can give myself a quick plug, like check out, I have this sort of almost cartoon series called Comrade Trumsky, Ruler of New Russia. And episode 1 actually has Charlottesville, where Putin calls him and he tells Trump how to handle Charlottesville. But anyway, that's enough of the plug. But So yeah, Charlottesville, because I remember when it happened, you know, I heard the news. I think I heard there was violence, and then pretty soon after I heard about the woman dying from being hit by the car, and then then within, you know, I forget, it was probably in the afternoon or something, but you know, it was on a Saturday. But within not all that long after the news was out, I think he did a press conference, like within an hour or two, I think. I don't know. But he did a press conference that day, and he said that, you know, some statements where he said, you know, it's terrible, and I condemn like all hate and violence and bigotry. Like he literally said that, and they're like, and then after the press conference, they're like, what about or maybe during it, I don't remember, but they're like, what about Nazi bigotry or whatever? And it's like he already condemned all of it, and so you're saying that he has to, like, literally, like I did a video at the time saying Trump condemned all of the hate and violence and bigotry, and then the MSM condemned half of it, and they were demanding that he only condemned the half they were condemning, because he said, "Oh no, there are wrongdoers on both sides." They're like, "No, there wasn't. No, there wasn't. Was not." And it's like, no, we know that Antifa are a bunch of thugs and shit, and that's sort of when it came about that, yeah, it's sort of mainstream, got sort of known that, yeah, Antifa are a bunch of thugs and shit. And then CNN backed off from like endorsing them and that bullshit. But up to that point, they were like, oh yeah, they're freedom fighters or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, they're, you know, they're protesting these horrible Nazis or whatever. Yeah, why wouldn't you punch a Nazi? And, you know, shit like that. Yeah, but it was just dumb because I thought Trump's, because even some people that were sympathetic to Trump said that, like, oh, well, he shouldn't have said that, or he mishandled that. The original statements that he said were totally fine, and if the left and the Democrats weren't so triggered and ridiculous and Trump hating, then it would have been fine, because he already said that it was, everything that happened was terrible and the bigotry was terrible. He already said it, you know, and they were asking him to, like, say that, like, oh, Antifa was fine, it was just these other people that you're calling Nazis, those people are all bad, and it was all 100% one-sided. No, it wasn't. It was, you know, yeah, there were assholes, there were, you know, right-wing wackos and shit, you know, neo-Nazis with the tiki torches and whatnot, and some other people too, maybe some conservative people that weren't Nazis, you know. And that's what Trump was saying, like, hey, maybe, I have this in my little comedy thing too, like, hey, maybe everybody that wanted to keep the statues, maybe not every one of them was a Nazi. Like, Putin tells Trump to say that in my little cartoon, and then Trump's like, that's crazy, what an insane statement. Like, that not everybody's a Nazi that wants to keep the statues. Because you remember the Civil War statues thing. Okay, yeah.
Check out that cartoon. Yeah, because
it's not exact. You know, that one is just like audio, so it's sort of almost a cartoon. But
yeah, Bandsaw Bandit, who's from Australia, says that unless Trump has "I'm not a Nazi" tattooed across his face, Democrats will never believe he isn't. Well, I think they'll probably call it a fake tattoo. You know, they'll say it's one of those.
No, they're saying, like, he just added the "not." It's "I am a Nazi."
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you can't spell I'm not a Nazi without saying I'm a Nazi, right?
Yeah, it's not a Nazi. It's a double negative. Therefore, he is a Nazi. Was it Half-Life 3 confirmed or whatever that joke was?
Yeah, Pinochet. Have a guy named, have you ever seen this guy Pinochet in the chat? He's funny.
Yeah, I don't think you have me on camera, by the way. I was looking at the thing.
What? Yeah, anyway, I do. I can actually I can fix it on you. Okay. So yeah, we'll just keep it on you for a second. But
okay.
Yeah, he says technically one side was better, but that's splitting hairs. I think we know which side Pinochet was rooting for.
I see myself now.
But in any case, like, I think here's my reaction to comparing this to
There's a delay. I'm watching.
Yeah.
Now I'm distracted. Okay. Do whatever you need to do with the camera. All right, I'll just go back to watching.
I can take it on me. So here, they'll look at me. So anyway, the issue that I see here is that with Charlottesville, it took weeks of people asking for new apologies and new drafts and new ways to address the controversy.
Stupid. It had nothing to do with Trump. They were all blaming it on Trump, and it's like, did he organize it? Did he drive the car and hit that woman? What the fuck? And then and that reminds me, the crooked Democrats They're always around. How is that? We have democratic authorities with stand-down orders. Hello, that's kind of fishy. You know, we also had that in Florida recently, you know, the event not to be named. We have Democrats with stand-down orders, and it smells like shit, and they're pointing the finger somewhere else.
Yeah, there's a real problem, I think, with and that's why it's important to have you know, no censorship in the media, because if it's not for channels like, you know, I mean, channels like
We're
ours
just
are
trying
good,
to get away with shit,
right?
you know?
Yeah, I mean, without channels that decode this bullshit, you know, people actually think that the police were you know, behaving properly at Charlottesville and behaving properly at that event. You know, the event of anonymous
Yeah. Well, the
significance.
FBI and the FBI and sheriff screwed up, and that's a fact. And before you talk about the NRA, I mean, sorry, I don't want to go on the whole thing, but the FBI screwed up, the sheriff screwed up. And, you know, there's a pattern of, like, Democrats especially giving orders that are dubious, and then it doesn't get investigated. Like, hey, wait a minute, what happened here? You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. Yeah,
It's
in
kind of like a
Virginia.
puppet show thing, because a lot of time, like, people like you and me, like, you know, we both watch Hard Bastard, and we keep abreast of things that aren't on fake news CNN, and some stuff starts to get really obvious, and it's like a little puppet show going on. It's like, what the hell? You know? It's like the Emperor's New Clothes, and it's like literally you're watching the Emperor walk around naked, and it's like, come on, really?
Right, and I think like you mentioned earlier, off air, this whole Stormy Daniels thing. Nobody could give a
Yeah.
shit about some you know, some slut, you know. With all due
And it was
respect,
years before, and
I'm using
yeah, yeah,
Farrakhan standards. I said I would call her, you know, because Farrakhan probably would. You know,
yeah.
because I'm using Farrakhan standards, it's okay because it's intersectional. So let's say that she's a slut,
Well, she's a
or
porn star. I mean, that's just
right.
descriptive.
So that I could care less. I'm not a, you know,
Yeah, I don't
I'm
either,
not.
and I think it may very well be bullshit, and I'm not even that worried about it because it's just throwing everything but the kitchen sink at Trump, and you get tired of it. And it's like, and I've said before, like I said on Twitter, like, what if, theoretically, what if when Bill Clinton was president, what if there were accusations that he cheated on Hillary years before he was president? That would have torn the nation in half. I'm glad that didn't happen. Like, give me a break with this. What? Like, even if it was true, like, what? So he had an affair years before he, and Mad Maxine Waters said that if Mueller doesn't get Trump, the Stormy Daniels will. And I was like, how? And I made the joke, like, yeah, is she going to prosecute the case?
Oh, Mad Maxine Waters said that?
Yeah, she said if Mueller doesn't get Trump, the Stormy Daniels will. That's not even impeachable remotely. That's not even, like, that's having an affair before he was in the White House, like, years before. That's not remotely. That's just like, oh, okay. That shows,
Yeah,
like, something.
he cheated on both of his. I think that would just mean he cheated on his third wife, just like his first and second wives.
That's not
And it would
even
just mean
illegal.
he's consistent. Right.
I
It's
mean,
not
yeah,
illegal.
so they're trying to get him, they're trying to cause him to have a divorce, but it has nothing to do, you know, if they said Bill Clinton getting it has nothing to do with him being a president. I mean, what about a porn star years before he's in the White House? Because, I mean, these same people acted like, oh, yeah, Bill Clinton, oh, well, that's the most powerful man in the world. You can't resist that. I mean, and, you know, and what's he going to do? I mean, you know, like, hey, I mean, it happens. He's very powerful. You can't resist him. I mean, it's going to happen. Powerful men, you know, it has nothing to do with the job, you know. And there was a joke. It was an old joke that it was like, what are you afraid of? That you're going to find out that he's cheating on the country, that he's the president of another country? And it's like, well, it's a good joke, but in a way, the Clintons are kind of doing that, though. You know, because they're paid for. In a way, they do kind of cheat.
Are you a fan of Norm Macdonald? Do you like Norm Macdonald?
Yeah, I love him.
Yeah, and when he was on SNL, he made a joke that you know, that Boris Yeltsin, President Clinton, and you know, I think it was Jiang Zemin of China, they went to a meeting, and he's like, Boris Yeltsin was representing Russia, and Bill Clinton was there representing China. And
well, that's good.
I was like, this is, you know, the one honest comedian of the '90s.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good because they are. Yeah, I think. Listen, this is just allegations that I've heard, because there's tons of stuff to prove that Hillary Clinton's a crook that should put her away, that everybody has evidence of, that we have in the public. But I've heard stuff about it. It looks to me like she probably sold some shit to the Chinese and whatnot. Like, oh, oops, they hacked my BlackBerry. Oops, there was something about her BlackBerry when she was in China. That was
Mr. McCarthy,
I lost my BlackBerry.
You have to check out my channel. I have three videos right now about this book that I'm about to hold up, about how in the 90s they sold out the country to China. Okay.
Yeah, well, I just started watching you recently, so
right,
I just picked up the Farrakhan videos.
I know, but this is the stuff I've been trying to get people's attention about. So I'm just saying anybody who hasn't watched those videos, anybody out there, you have to check it out. If you watch those videos, all this stuff they're talking about collusion in the United States today is the biggest. It's basically like comparing a kiddie pool in your backyard to the Indian Ocean. It's
the Clinton Foundation is just like the biggest. There was an article, I guess, recently somebody posted about like
this is worse. This is worse.
Worldwide
worse
criminal
than the Clinton Foundation. This makes the Clinton Foundation look. I'm telling you, actual campaign donations from Chinese intelligence officials to the Clinton Gore 96.
Yeah, well, we know, and she sold the uranium. What do you think Putin is going to do with the uranium? He's a uranium collector. He's going to put it in a uranium museum. What do you think he's going to do with it? It's only
just copy and paste the same method.
Either he makes some sort of, he could do something with nuclear power, probably not. So probably either nuclear weapons or selling it. That's about it. That's what he's going to do with it. Well, he's not going to be like, I'm just going to add this to my uranium collection. I'm going to make jewelry out of it or something. I mean, that's what it's for.
For those of you that are just joining, I'm here with Lenin McCarthy, a fellow YouTuber, right? And another follower of Hard
Truth
Bastard.
Warrior.
Truth Warrior.
Citizen journalist.
I guess we're all citizen journalists right now, because the actual journalists won't do their damn jobs. They won't dig up this.
That's why I started, and probably why you did too. I mean, I was like about a year ago that I started like on YouTube. I was a Twitter troll for a while before that. But, I started on YouTube because I think I got so mad. I heard about the Seth Rich story when a while after he died, Julian Assange gave an interview, and it looked like he indicated that was the source. And a lot of people didn't even hear about it back then. And then they heard about it when Rod Wheeler went on Fox. But I remember after Rod Wheeler went on Fox and it sort of broke into the mainstream, and then the mainstream handling of it were like, hey, shut up. You're not allowed to talk about it, or it's disrespectful to his family. And what are you, a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist? So it made me so mad that I just started like YouTubing. And already I was like pretty radicalized about the Russia stuff.
Yeah, for me, I think the kicker was when Comey had that stupid press conference in summer 2016. That's when I started getting really active. That was one of those.
Certain events like trigger me, I think, because like I remember that. So it's cool if like I consider myself a Trump supporter. I wasn't always, and it's cool if people are like independent or whatever. Like Hard Bastard like voted for Trump and agrees with some stuff he does and not with some stuff, but he doesn't call himself a Trump supporter. I just do, because I'm always defending the guy like nonstop, and yeah, I'm like rooting for him, so I just will. But I transitioned from being independent and sort of being fair to becoming a Trump supporter when. This was a while back, and it wasn't like a major news story, really. But the first time a Democrat actually filed articles of impeachment, I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. Okay, I'm a Trump supporter now. Fuck you. Eat a bag of dicks, with your coup trying to undo the election.
Eat a bag of dicks 2020. That's a good slogan. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you're very. I keep finding that this is what YouTube does. I keep finding like people with the same story. For me, it was like I said, it was that press conference.
Jill Stein, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned
that's fine. By the way, I said Jill Stein's probably on a personal level, she's probably the nicest person who ran for president. I think she was.
I wasn't sold on Trump. I was a Bernie Sanders person with a primary, and then I was conflicted because I was still half asleep and half awake when he got cheated. and shit, and I was like, doo, 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 doo. And then another event happened, which was 9/11 on 2016, where she fainted. And then what triggered me was not that her health was that bad. What triggered me, because I still was mad about why the fuck isn't Bernie the candidate. And then when they floated, Donna Brazile, the DNC, whoever, MSM floated, they said, oh, well, maybe we'll replace Hillary with Biden or Kaine. And I was like all excited about Bernie and shit at the time. I'm like, what the fuck? How do you just, that we had a close vote at best, if you're not saying it was rigged, it was close at best. And you're going to just hand it off to some other like neoliberal instead of the person who just barely was like neck and neck. I mean, what the fuck is that? So I just went never Hillary. I was actually thinking about it because I was kind of conflicted. I'm like, I love Bernie. He said to vote for her. I don't know what to do and shit. And like I was watching H.A. Goodman and like WikiLeaks and shit and was sort of half, you know, I started to wake up about what was going on. And eventually I just went never Hillary and just like, no, this woman is like the Antichrist. And so I wasn't sold on Trump though, because at first I did have, for a while I had a negative view of Trump because of all the media and stuff. I wasn't crazy with, but I didn't like him. But because, you know, but then by the election, I was definitely warming up to him almost enough to vote for him, but not quite. And then actually after he was sworn in and like he said no to TPP and shit and started doing shit, and I saw that he wasn't a 100% liar like Obama, who kept like no promises. It's like, wait, okay, I know he's not perfect and there's some shit, there's some issues with, you know, some of the same old, but he's actually doing some of his promises and shit. And yeah, the Democrats don't like a lot of his promises, but it's like he's trying to fulfill what he said he was going to do. And I think that's why his base is really strong, has been underestimated the whole time and has actually grown. Like I wasn't part of his base before.
Yeah, I think if I can tell my story about how, you know, I did end up voting for Trump. I was a huge Rand Paul supporter because his dad kind of got me into believing in smaller government. And it took me a very, because I have a lot of friends from India and you know, other immigrants that you know, I had to be honest. I was like, you know, I don't think I can support an immigration system like Donald Trump does. But I think what swung me in terms of actually supporting him was during the election, he flew to Mexico on a day's notice and had one of the most spectacular press conferences I've ever had with the president of Mexico. And Hillary just didn't even take the invitation. I was like, this is a guy who, you know, you can call him a scammer.
Oh, Hillary's a stiff.
Right. This guy knows how to seize the moment, knows how to seize opportunities. He could be a great president. That's what I thought back then. I don't like a lot of his policies as far as conservation and as far as you know, some of the Second Amendment stuff that might come down the tube or whatever. You know, there's aspects of his policy with Puerto Rico that I've heard about, with the Kingfish, if you know what I'm talking about, where they had that contractor, not Kingfish, I think it was Whitefish, that they awarded a contract that I'm not a fan of. But you know, on the grand scale,
this crazy mayor.
Yeah,
remember the crazy mayor?
Yeah, this is yeah. The mayor was like sorry, not retarded. Okay, yeah, she was retarded. I guess I went and
she
said
had something that rhymes with Down syndrome. I don't know.
Right. The thing is
clown syndrome. There you go, clown syndrome.
You know, if I'll bet. Here's what I think. If you did a game and you asked people, you know, you said a quote to them, and then you'd ask them who said it, Louis Farrakhan or Donald Trump, it's quite likely that they couldn't guess it, and that's kind of.
And it's great. Some of the things that Farrakhan has said, he said normal things too, of course.
Yeah.
But the crazy stuff that he said, it's no way that Trump would have said that and it wouldn't have been brought up before. Like if he said something about, oh, the Jewish devils, blah blah blah. I mean, we would have heard about that.
Yeah, but a lot of people are under the impression that Trump is like this, is you know, literally Orange Hitler. So if you gave them a
the idea,
quote,
okay, it's one, okay, there's the trope, of course, that he's a racist, the big all-encompassing one, but the specific one that he's anti-Semitic is ridiculous because of you know, his son-in-law being Jewish and then his daughter converted too. So I just think it's ridiculous to think he's like this anti-Semite with Jewish people in his immediate family. I don't believe it.
Yeah, and I think one of his daughter-in-laws is daughters-in-law is Jewish as well. And
Yeah.
you know, I think it's very, and one of the things I do in my article on which is in the description on Hard News Network, is I address the issue of a lot of these neoliberal leaders who like to complain about the quote unquote anti-Semitic aspects of the administration. And there was that whole globalist bullshit that they talked about this
Oh,
week.
that was a joke. So
Yeah, if
that's like calling
now they're
Pepe
trying to
the
lump.
Frog. They say Pepe the Frog is the same as a swastika. The
Yeah,
ADL. It's nuts.
I know people who believe that. It's ridiculous. It's
Well,
almost it's almost like,
I made a joke today on Twitter. Well, somebody was just joking around, and they said they're talking about reptiles, and they said, "Are the reptiles globalists?" And I said, translation, "Are the Jews Jews?" That's the translation from the ADL. Because it's just everything. There's like, you know, oh, that's code word for Jews. And like somebody else pointed out, I think it was Hard Bastard maybe. He said like the alt-right, when they mean Jew, they say Jew. I mean, like if you go on Gab and look around where people, you know, don't get thrown off for being racist, then you see some real racists there. Because, you know, before I went on Gab and I was only on Twitter, you start to think like all these like, you know, right-wing racists, you start to think they're all imaginary because you don't see the same thing that you see when it's not censored.
mm-hmm.
And I think you have to let people, the censorship, if let's just, you know, let's say that they're racist and it's hateful and shit. If you censor it, you just make it fester. Whereas if you don't censor it, then you have some radical people over here saying some crazy shit. And then, like I said this, like I did a video with this other guy, Diddy. Let's say, for example, you have a right-wing guy and he's not like a total, like, he's not like the most racist person on earth. Let's say he's kind of bigoted in that direction and he's right-wing, but not like the worst guy on earth, but he is kind of a bigot. And then you have like a left-wing guy and he's like a Black Lives Matter type guy, but he's not like batshit crazy nuts, but he's kind of got his own bigoted shit a little bit to an extent, but he's not, you know, nuts. But both of them kind of have a little bit of stuff going on. And he's like, you know, and I'd say, I'm doing it with like my hands like a show, but it's like, you know, the black person's like, hey, white people, blah, 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 blah. And then the right-wing guy is like, hey, well, how come black people, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, but they start talking a little bit, but then you get these centrists, like neoliberals in the middle, and they just ruin everything and make everything bullshit. And then when you hide people away and you can't talk, that also makes it worse.
Yeah,
you know
they've
what
created
I mean? Like,
kind of the
open communication.
They've created the center, the boring center. That's what the neoliberals are. I mean, there are people who are center who kind of are like, you know, we'll accept other opinions. There is a center that says we're not going to censor, the anti-censorship center. And then there's the center that like the Clintonites that they say, well, we need a consensus, and people who don't agree with the consensus, they're basically the fringe. And so they're believing in this censorship. They're trying to push the censorship.
When the left became the left and was like, it's just fake and it's not the left and it's bullshit, for me, like, it's like, okay, you're going to just say that we're pro-war now, we're pro-corporation and pro-war and pro-censorship. Fuck you. I don't know what that is. That's garbage. You know, you say like you're a liberal or progressive or left wing. I don't care what you call that. That's some bullshit. The Clintonite stuff where it's like, oh yeah, I'm super liberal and I care about justice, and yeah, I don't give a shit about just like dropping a bunch of bombs overseas and like Obama with his drones. And like Jimmy Dore says, like Obama is like a sleeping pill for the left, where it's like he just did all this warmonger shit, like worse than George W. Bush, and totally like nobody even like noticed it. It seemed like, you know, except for like people that didn't like Obama. But not like the left just goes to sleep, you know, like it's, oh, and some people are still like, oh, he's the best, we love him. And he was a terrible president. I voted for him twice. That's how dumb I mean, no, I voted for the guy twice. Horrible president.
Yeah, I think the issue with Obama is that a lot of people bought the style over the substance, and he
looked great. And if you look at him in 2008 and stuff, looked like he's saying stuff that makes sense and stuff. And it turns out it's just like an act. It's all bullshit. And the guy is like owned by Citigroup. You know, it came out like in WikiLeaks that they like picked his cabinet.
Well, I think that people have learned a lesson. Unfortunately, they learned it under Trump. But you know, if you really look back at it, you do have to scrutinize these candidates, and Obama was an excellent
Well,
candidate for
there's
scrutiny.
some crossovers though. That, you know, like the narrative isn't. The narrative is that all Trump supporters are all a bunch of right-wing yokels and Nazis and shit. And there's no crossover because, you know, if you don't like Obama, you're a Nazi, and there's no crossover. But a lot of like Obama voters ended up voting for Trump, like, because they're swing voters and they wanted something different. And like Obama let them down. They weren't all like everybody that voted for Obama won the election, and everybody that voted for him wasn't like totally identity politics Democrat on board with exactly this. You know what I mean? It was like a big coalition, a lot of swing voters that just wanted something different.
Yeah, a lot of people simply voted for him because they thought he was better than McCain, or they liked his.
Yeah, I guess, and by the way, McCain is a nightmare. You know.
Yeah, I could say that
worse than Obama. McCain's a nightmare.
If it wasn't for somebody that I knew who convinced me to vote in 2012, I didn't want to vote for Mitt Romney at all. But somebody begged me to vote because he said, "Oh, we can't let Obama stay in power." That was my
first election. Somebody begged me to vote for Bill Clinton.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
I was going to vote. I didn't vote. I was really young.
I
wanted to vote libertarian.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm older than you. But yeah, I wanted to vote libertarian, and somebody talked me into voting Bill Clinton, and then I voted like Democrat for 20 years.
Well, you know, maybe one day there will be a good libertarian party to vote for, but not yet, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, no, not Gary Johnson. I mean, that guy's kind of a doofus. I mean, not the worst person out there, but I think, you know, yeah, he's kind of not as bad as Evan McMuffin.
Oh yeah,
some sort
I called him
shill.
Yeah, Egg McMuffin. I used to call him Evan McMonkey because he's basically a CIA plant.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I hate that guy.
He's a goon, and he hates the president and these people, either the deep state government-ish people or the people on mainstream media that are like blah, 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 and Trump's not a patriot, and blah, 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 we're patriots, we love the CIA. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you're attacking the president of the United States 24/7. You're anti-American. You're a bunch of, you know, shitheads trying to do a coup because Queen Hillary lost, and you don't like democracy. So fuck off, you know?
Yeah, my perspective on that, because I used to consider myself more towards the left. I mean, I'm talking like going back way before I could vote. I think probably when I was more of a teenager, I was reading a lot about the CIA, and my perspective on it is that I've you know, even if I've never voted for the president, I never. It's not like you can vote for the CIA. So
no, you can't.
You're supposed to vote for your elected officials. So you should never consider yourself, if you're loyal to anything in the government, it should be to at least some officials that you elect, and then in reality, the loyalty should be more the other way around, them towards you. But you shouldn't consider yourself loyal to the IRS or the CIA or the Department of Homeland Security. That's not the way it's supposed to work.
Well, that's one thing about the Second Amendment. Somebody posted like a meme that had an old picture of, it's like one of the massacres or something with redcoats, you know, with shooting the guns. I forget what it was called. But anyway, but it was, you know, it was with the Revolutionary War. And they said, did anybody else see the irony of people with guns, you know, disarming people? Like, you know, and they have the Hitler memes and stuff. And see, people, okay, I understand if you want to have, we already have some restrictions and it's not necessarily the end of the world. But I'm just going to, my default position is with the Second Amendment because I see what the other people are trying to do. There are people that are in the middle that mean well with the gun control, but the people pulling the strings, they're doing an operation. They don't care if it takes 5 years or 100 years. They want to eliminate the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, the Bill of Rights. They want to get rid of that shit. And if they have to do it a tiny bit at a time, they'll do it. If they want to do it with some incidents, they'll do it that way. But that's the agenda. And I see that agenda. And the thing is like George Washington said, like, that the people should have arms like equal to the government. And I know that they don't. And then people say like, oh, well, you can't stand up to the government. Stuff. But that's like a bully argument. And the thing is if we literally, let's say guns were illegal for private citizens and it was military, cops, some highly licensed security guards for like the LA people and stuff. But let's say it was just those classes of people, like some red tape where not everybody can have a gun, maybe very few security guards. and then the rest is just like cops and military. What do you think that? How do you think that the landscape or the political climate of the country is going to change? It's not going to be for the better. It's going to be a police state, and the stupid people on the left, if Trump is in charge of that police state and they're calling him Hitler, what are they thinking about? Sorry, I just went on and on and on.
For those of you just joining, we're here with Lenin McCarthy. He's on YouTube. He's on Twitter as Comrade McCarthy, at Comrade McCarthy. And we were discussing earlier the Farrakhan feminism. So, you know, please later go back and to the beginning and see the videos in the description. And by the way, Farrakhan, everywhere he goes, is surrounded by the fruit of Islam, who are his personal bodyguards. So, you know, I think that there's some, and you know, they're armed bodyguards. I think that, you know, there's something to be said that people deserve if they can afford personal bodyguards and they think they need them. That's fine too. But a lot of these Hollywood people, they're talking about gun control as a big value, but
they
you know,
are always going to have their armed guards, guaranteed. Elites, you know, like maybe not a D-list celebrity, maybe not a B-list celebrity. Elites will always have armed guards, and the A-list celebrities, that includes them. You know what I mean? The more important people in the media, and that those people, if guns were outlawed for private citizens, those people would still have armed guards because they're an elite ruling class.
Yeah, and I think that you know, getting to an elite ruling class, and I think after that we'll close. But you mentioned earlier the closing of the House investigation.
Oh yeah,
into Russian interference in the election. I think
that's good.
Yeah, you know, I was watching some of the proceedings, you know, concerning that, and it seemed to me that this was the ultimate case, and this was before the Roy Moore thing. I started talking about the presumption of innocence. That, you know, a lot of these people.
I was upset about that too.
Yeah, there's these people. They're trying to find the crime after they do the investigation. So what do you think this is going to do for the rest of the Russiagate narrative? Because you know it's not over yet.
It's of course, no, it's not. Of course it's not over. They want to drag it out forever, but it's getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and it is getting funny. And yeah, maybe you know, and get more people to watch my you know, Trump Russia cartoon or something, because it's so, you literally can't make it up. I had, like, in one of my episodes, Putin says that 9/11 was caused by Russian bots spreading fake news, because it's like the narratives in the media are so stupid. Like with the you know, the Facebook ads being after the election for like Black Lives Matter is like, that's going to tilt the election for Trump. It's like, what are they talking about? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the Russia investigation, I think it eroded a lot of people's belief. You know, I've never supported Bernie. I've actually quite opposed him, but you know, he kind of got roped in there. What do you think about his credibility? He still, I think, is a bit. He's more second. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it hurts his credibility big time. That, and you know, so I'm an ex-Bernie supporter. I don't worry about trashing him all the time. Sometimes I have some choice words about him or to him, not all the time. And sometimes, you know, it's like, okay. I mean, he's better than most of the Democrats, but that's like not saying anything. And so, you know, I was excited when I voted in the primary. I was totally on the same page. I was into him. Then when he endorsed Hillary, that was kind of bullshit. But I was still kind of, what?
Did he win your state?
I'm in California, so no. And I think that was bullshit too, because I had a feeling like it was going to be a landslide for Bernie, and I think maybe they just cheated on that one. I don't know. Because it was California, and some people, and they called it before the polls were open in California. They said, oh, Hillary has the nomination locked up. That's what the AP said right before the polls open in California. And then even when I voted, a lot of people in California expected Bernie to win, and then he didn't. And, you know, I was like, okay. And that's when things got, you know, the excitement, you know, went away.
Well, one of our listeners
and the Russia stuff, hurt his credibility too. I'd say as much as ignoring the blatant election fraud, that if you have clear eyes about the situation, that you should know that something stinks about the Hillary Clinton getting a nomination, how that went down.
Oh, when he betrayed Tim Canova, that really caught my eye, because I was I'm not a progressive, but I actually donated money to Tim Canova, and when
Oh, well, I
Bernie Sanders,
donated money to Bernie. So, you know, what was it, like $27 was like the normal amount or whatever. So Hillary Clinton stole 20. I mean, yeah, I can blame Bernie too for being in on it. But essentially, Hillary Clinton and the DNC stole $27 from me.
yeah,
Because that money was
um,
always going to like Hillary victory or whatever, no matter what.
yeah, the general fund,
Yeah, the
the
Hillary Fund.
election, Hillary for
Because
2016 or
Hillary
whatever.
was funding the DNC. I didn't even know that at the time. You know, it came out later with like Donna Brazil's book and stuff. I mean, it sort of looked like it was the same thing, the DNC and Clinton campaign, but she was literally like running the DNC. It was the Clinton campaign was the same thing.
I have some comments here in the chat from Larry Gerke, who you know, I met him on the Lionel Nation channel, if you know it. Um, he says, "Jump on Hillary Clinton blaming women for voting like their husbands and bosses tell them." Is that a new
Yeah,
thing? Is
yeah,
that,
she's in India. Yeah, it was like today it came out. She's in India and she's digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper, where she's basically calling people deplorables again in another way, where she said that, I forget what she said, that it's like a bunch of rubes voted for Trump or whatever her new
yeah,
catchphrase for deplorables is. Yeah,
backward states?
backward. Yeah, so she's just digging it and digging it, and like I made a joke that like she's you know, she's trying to use reverse psychology so she can win re-election to Queen of Bizarro World. It's like, what the fuck is she? She's digging the hole. Like, just shut up and like go away. Like, even if she wanted people to like her and to gain credibility, let's say she was so crazy she wanted to run again. She keeps digging a hole deeper. People hate her more every day. She would lose like more. She would lose by more every day that goes on. Trump gets more popular and she gets less popular. You would win in a landslide and flatten her if it was today.
If she was to run again, I would, those primaries, it would be amazing how they would rig it to, you know, they'd have to do something. It would be basically like trying to part the Red Sea. That's how hard they would have to try.
What might have happened, you know, it could be, you know, I'm in the conspiratorium on this, but I think like with the election, what happened was they tried their damnedest to rig it and they just couldn't. The numbers weren't there to even pull it off and they couldn't do it. That's what I think, because I fully expected what I expected to happen. I thought Hillary was going to win, but I thought she was going to cheat. That's what I thought. I was like, and I bet I wouldn't be surprised if my vote was never counted, because I voted for Jill Stein in California. I wouldn't be surprised it was absolutely never counted. And it's just, it's lost. Even if it was legitimate, it's lost in the sea of blue anyway. So,
so we, and I made another. Yeah. Another guy said, 1 second. Larry also said, this guy is just like me, meaning him. How come you're not calling him a Maoist? Well, how about we ask, are you a Maoist, Lenin McCarthy? Or you, his name's
no,
Lenin McCarthy.
I'm not sure what that means. Yeah, was it Maoist like communist Chinese? No.
No, this is an old joke between me and him, because I used to think that he's kind of a Maoist or something. But
oh yeah, I have another joke that I think so in 2020. So Trump is getting more popular actually. So I think he's gonna win 49 states. He's gonna lose California, and he's gonna win by a strong electoral margin, of course, in 49 states. But he's still gonna lose the popular vote because there's gonna be so many millions of illegal aliens voting. So
yeah,
I mean, I'm in California. It happens. I mean, come on. We need some voter ID laws.
I think the voter ID law thing is kind of, you know, my question is this, and I don't think I've ever talked about this on air, although I've thought about it. If people believe that universal health care is a right and we should pay for universal health care, how about this? People who can't afford IDs, why don't we just pay for their IDs and we would give them voter IDs?
It's a dumb thing. Nobody doesn't have IDs, especially if they're a citizen, and they give out driver's licenses in the blue states, which is where it's a problem, and they don't have the voter ID laws. In the super liberal blue states like California, they're handing out driver's licenses to illegal aliens anyway, and then they're saying it's racist to ask for an ID at voting. And it's like, are we talking about like the old Negroes in the Smoky Mountains of California? Who is it that doesn't have an ID? What are we talking about? It's complete bullshit. Just absolutely. You need an ID to buy cigarettes or cough medicine. It's like, oh, some people can't afford an ID. No, who doesn't have an ID unless maybe you are an illegal alien? I mean, what the hell?
Yeah, in order
If you're a
to,
citizen and you don't have an ID and you're eight, like let's say you haven't learned to drive and you're 18 and you live in your parents' house and you want to vote. Okay, then go to the DMV and get a ID with your picture on it so you can vote. I got an ID before I learned how to drive because it was convenient. Like, because I didn't learn to drive till I was 19. But I got,
mhm.
because you start going out and doing shit and buying cigarettes and whatnot. And when you become like an adult, it's at a certain age, even in high school, you start to want to have an ID to do whatever. So I had like a regular ID before I learned to drive. And like, if you're 18 and you want to vote, go down to the DMV and get an ID. If you don't already have a driver's license, which you probably do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
You
that
know, there's no excuse for not having it. I don't get it. Make them free. Pass a law that they all have to be free. I don't give a fuck how they do it. Just we need the IDs.
yeah, that's really it's all about for them just ending transparency and you know making things as
No, and
opaque
that's
as
why we
possible.
don't have paper ballots. And it's because they're playing games. They want to keep rigging elections. You know, they meaning primarily the Democrats, but also the deep state and you know the Republicans are, you know, they're shady too. I think there's some spy versus spy stuff, but the Democrats, you know, recent years taking the cake with their cheating.
Yeah, Bandsaw Bandit has it right, and I was bringing it up. He said you have to show, and he's from Australia, by the way. He knows this. He says you have to show ID to register for your social security checks, and you
Yeah.
know also your other benefits.
To do anything, you need an ID. And then they're trying to say that it's some Jim Crow bullshit. Maybe if it was like the 1870s or something, I would get it and say, hey, these freed slaves, they don't all have IDs. But now when they say it, it's empty bullshit. And it's so, I don't even think it's just, you know, whatever. It's a conspiracy theory. I think there's illegal aliens. I think to some extent, some busing shit happens. I don't know to what extent I think it happens. And I think the machines are screwed with too. I don't trust them. So let's just go with transparency, whether I'm right or wrong. Let's go with the most transparency so you can't cheat. You know what I mean? They want opacity. You know, they meaning the powers that be, essentially.
Yeah, I think that there's a fundamental problem here where you know I wish that progressives did have a movement that reflected you know actual policy issues. You know, I talked to Carlos, who's on the channel all the time, who I don't know if you've ever seen one of the streams where he's in, but um, you know, we talk all the time about the fact is that in California, where you live, a lot of progressives have already demanded that Sacramento fund universal health care. I'm against universal health care, but I think that you know progressives deserve a system that includes representation for them. That's why you know I think
Yeah.
some of the seats in Congress should be proportional. Some of the seats in the Senate should
Oh
be
well, yeah,
proportional.
like they do in other countries.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't think I
we
think
have the thing is that it's rigged. It doesn't have to be, but the two parties that are in power, they like to keep in that club of two, whether it's a uniparty or just a party or just a group of two. They like to keep everybody else out of it. And like that thing with the debates. The debates thing was bullshit. I know that people said, "Oh, we don't really want to hear Jill Stein, Gary Johnson, or that wouldn't get any ratings, or whatever it is." And like, no, this is democracy. At least give them enough coverage to let the American people see that these people are running for president too, and don't have some stupid private organization, which is it's bipartisan, meaning that it's owned and operated by the duopoly. And they say you need 15%, you need to poll at 15% to even get on there, which how can you poll at 15% when there's a media blackout? It's impossible. And they raised that number too, because like I remember Ross Perot was in debates and stuff. They raised that number artificially to keep third parties out.
yeah,
And it's
it's really
totally shady. It should
it's
I don't know if they have to make it a government thing to do to run the debates or whatever, but the people that are running it now are assholes and they rig it against third parties. And if you're not if you're like laughing at the third parties, you know, let's say you're a Democrat or Republican and you're laughing at the third parties and shit and saying they're insignificant, then what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? Why do you have to shut them out of everything? Because they're a challenge. Because, you know, maybe if they did get more coverage, maybe they would, you know, they'd make some progress. You know, it was pretty tough. You know, I was like telling everybody to vote for Jill Stein and shit, and everybody's like laughing at me. But, you know, it's like, you know, it's frustrating though. People get frustrated with the two parties.
You know what's breathtaking is I watched the Brexit vote very closely because I follow politics in the UK, and I saw the debates there, and not just with Brexit, but with their elections, and the level of dialogue and you know, debate quality is just completely different there. It really is, and you know, there's plenty to criticize as well in terms of their political system, but there were about 11 people on stage for the general election. In the Brexit debate, you know, they had 3 people from each side. You know, they had very good. I think it was fantastic, and I think that that's why their results came out to be true to the people's actual feelings.
Well, the only excuse that I can, and it's, you know, credit to the Green Party for promoting this, and not everybody does. Of course, they have their reasons for promoting it. But I think for anybody, the only argument against ranked choice voting, strong only is, I want to keep the two parties in power. That's the only argument. Because if you're gonna win, yeah, it divvies it up. You know what it does? It gets rid of the spoiler effect. The Ralph Nader thing that they hold over, they use that on purpose to scare you into not voting third party. They hold it over people's heads. Ranked choice voting eliminates it. The person with the most votes still wins. It's not like you overturn how it works. The person with the most votes still wins. There's no spoiler effect though, because you list who you want in the order you want them, and then whoever gets the most votes wins. So there's no, and so the only real art, and it's not hard to do. It's not like super complicated. It's easy to implement. The real argument against it is to keep things the way they are.
Yeah. So what do you think about you know, this stuff, the Farrakhan feminism and everything, which we've kind of gone away from. but you know, I do want people. By the way, if you joined late, check out those videos. Check out the beginning of this video. But do you think this stuff with the Women's March is going to erode more support in the Democratic column in terms of people who will say, well, you know, what the fuck are we talking about? Is this really about women's rights?
It's a process where, well, it's gradual because I think the people that are into the Women's March, they're the pussy hat people and they're bonkers. So, but yeah, eventually people wake up and there's things shift around and change. But I don't understand, without this recent Farrakhan scandal, I don't understand how they think the Women's March is great anyway. So I don't know. It's your cognitive dissonance. Like, you know, the Nation of Islam and the Islam stuff is extremely patriarchal, conservative, old-fashioned. And to say that it's like with the progressive stuff, it's just because they're putting it in their huge circus tent. And they're saying, hey, you're victims, and you can point at white men and shit with us and say they're and call them racist too, and you know, and all that shit, come into our big circus tent. But they don't really necessarily belong there, not organically anyway. They're allies.
What I think is going to be a problem for them is that, and hear me out on this. You know, it's not like you or me, we started having the beliefs we have because we're anti-woman or because we're anti-black or whatever. But you know, with each person, there was kind of you know, that tipping point. For me, it was you know, the Comey thing, and you know, Al Gore and whatever made me not a Democrat. But everybody has that tipping point where they realize kind of that it's an empty
like this is bullshit.
Yeah. So I think that some of the people
fanning on 9/11 for me, I think, where it's just like they just jumped the shark.
I'll send you. In fact, let me see if I can find it. But there was an article. I don't think it was Salon, but it was one of those other neoliberal. Might have been Slate, but this woman who was a Women's March supporter, and she was also gay. She decided, you know what? We don't need the Women's March anymore. We don't need these figures. We need, you know, I'm done with this. And you know, I think that it might Yeah, here it is, Refinery 21. Let me show it on screen if you don't mind, Lenin McCarthy. I love calling
You
you
can just
that.
call me Lenin.
Yeah, Comrade Lenin. I can't believe I'm saying that. By the way, everybody, I keep having to reintroduce you because we don't have any graphics on screen. But this is Lenin
That's
McCarthy,
okay.
over here, and he's a YouTuber, and he's not a communist, but he's also, um, he's not a communist. So I guess you'll have
No,
to check out his channel to see what he actually believes in.
no, I
Just
would
teasing.
say I'm an ex-Democrat. I support Trump now. I could say probably
Right.
near somewhere in the middle of the political spectrum, but not neoliberal. I'm anti-establishment, anti-war. So whatever. I've moved right since being like liberal. I'm an ex-liberal.
So this woman, Lily Herman, she says basically that let me see here. There's a whole part where she says, here we go. To say that we didn't, okay, understandably, the Jewish community, particularly people who have supported the Women's March and other social justice causes, wanted answers. We also wanted something that most thought would be pretty simple for a bunch of women who spend their days parading around their intersectionality. We wanted them to denounce anti Semitism and the words Farrakhan used against Jews. This isn't a new thing. After all, we ask public figures to denounce awful people and hate speech all the time. To say that we didn't get that is an understatement. Instead, we got Tamika Mallory posting a bizarre series of tweets calling valid criticisms bullying and refusing to
Oh,
apologize for,
bullying is a new thing.
yeah,
Sorry to
yeah,
interrupt.
for her support of Farrakhan and her lack of denouncement regarding his words. Linda Sarsour suddenly decided that she was very
Uh,
cool with silence and just retweeted. She retweeted one of Mallory's tweets, as did Bob Bland, who, by the way, is a woman. Her name is Bob Bland. Carmen Perez took it one step further, quote tweeting, I don't even know who that is, but she quote tweeted Mallory and saying something about the national organizers' lifetime commitment to liberation. That sounds sexy. Missing from that, a condemnation of Farrakhan. At this point,
yeah.
here's what I've got to say to all of them. You've got to be fucking kidding me. The past several years, since quite frankly the start of Trump's campaign for president, have been particularly difficult for lots of people. Guess what? That includes Jews. Neo-Nazis chanted Jews will not replace us in Charlottesville. Jewish cemeteries were desecrated. By the way, they weren't desecrated by the alt-right, to my knowledge. I think they
Well,
were
some of
desecrated.
them were, yeah. Some of them were like instigated by. There's some things by Jewish people or by left-wing people or something like that.
Yes, some of them were fake. Some of them were by, people who had a vendetta, personal vendetta against somebody. I think some of those calls were by this radical black ex-journalist from The Intercept, which is, that's that publication with
Yeah.
Glenn Greenwald, which I think it's kind of ironic. I don't try to, I don't like The
Yes.
Intercept, but I don't
Weird.
read them
Like
too much. Say
I
that again.
like I like Glenn Greenwald for the most part. Like when I see him tweeting stuff, I actually agree with him more often. Except it's weird, like it used to be like pretty cool, and now like they hate Julian Assange and stuff, and it's like, what the fuck are they doing?
Can you repeat that? I think I missed it for some reason. I didn't get the. Sorry. The
I
green.
was just
Glenn
saying,
Greenwald.
like, yeah, I agree with a lot of times I'll see somebody retweet something from him, or I'll see it on Twitter. A lot of times, most often, I'll agree with whatever it is he's saying. Like, I think he's a good guy, but I'm not sure about The Intercept because I think they've like sort of. There's been this evolution of like turning against WikiLeaks and Julian Assange and stuff, and that's like totally shady.
Yeah, I think I'll like watch some of their stuff or watch their page for some things that are interesting, but I'm not always crazy about their reporting. But they're not as crappy as TYT or anything. They're
No, not no,
yeah,
no. I'm saying that they
yeah,
were like kind of better before, and now I'm not so sure.
yeah, exactly.
But they're not like just like complete shit like TYT or CNN. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that yeah, if there's an article out, it might be good, it might not be. You know.
Yeah, so I'm kind of neutral about them. I'm a little less than neutral. I'm not. I don't like their slant, but I think that they have
Yeah.
kind of a little more of an honest approach to the news than the mainstream media.
Yeah,
So
and I like Glenn Greenwald says a lot of good stuff too.
so anyway, this woman, this is Refinery 21, which is one of those like fire breathing feminist websites. she basically said, you know, she's done with the march as it is right now, and that, you know, it's almost like I think that it is coming apart. I saw articles where the local affiliates of the movement are disaffiliating with the national movement. Uh, so this is a problem for them, and um, you know, although the mainstream media is not really covering it, I think people who are involved in it, who may think to themselves, you know, I don't want to be involved in hate speech or whatever. If they're watching this infighting, you know, on Twitter, if they're watching it with their friends, you know, people screaming at each other, I think that's where they're getting turned off. They're not necessarily getting turned off from people from the outside like me criticizing the Women's March because, you know, to them I'm just some sort of you know, Koch brothers tool or something. You know, that's the way they look at me. Um, so I think that we can close for today. How about
Okay.
this? You know, we mentioned your channel and everything. This is Lenin McCarthy. What do you think is like the next big issue that they're going to use to distract, besides Stormy Daniels, distract the public from like everything that's, you know, the more important things like the Korea negotiations? What's the
Oh
next
yeah,
big illusion?
yeah. Korea's still good on now. I'm concerned with, you know, certain black operations happening because it's always, you know, they happen and I don't think they're going to stop. So, you know, hopefully they're not too bad. I mean, you know, I don't want to say too much, of course, you know what I'm talking about. So unfortunately stuff like that happens, but I'm not sure. There could be other stupid stuff. They're not done with Stormy Daniels, even though they should be, because no one cares. I mean, are the Democrats the party of virtue signaling at people cheating on their spouses? Like, yes or no? What do you think? If anybody gave a rat's ass about somebody cheating on their spouse like it was a deal breaker, it would probably be some super, super, super conservative religious person who either already loves Trump or is a never Trumper already. And so it literally makes no difference. Like, nobody cares. You know what I mean? The Democrats don't care about people cheating. They're like, they publish articles saying like, oh yeah, the new thing is to, you know, have
Cuckoldry.
guys have sex with your wife or whatever, and that's like cool. And the guys with their hand, what they call them, like the pocket
The
soy
cuckoldry.
boys or whatever. The way they have the beta men with the hands in each other's pockets.
Yeah. The cucks. The cuckoldry.
And there were memes with like where it was different, like Democrats, or one of them had like Anderson Cooper and one of them had Obama, and it had like four guys. I saw two different ones. They're both hilarious. But yeah,
That sounds
they
disgusting.
don't. There's nobody. I know. There's nobody though that that cares about that. There's just people that are like killbots that are like, yeah, that's right. He's disgusting. He's a pervert. He hates women. Oh, Bill Clinton, he's fine. And it's like that's literally the only people that give a shit are deranged killbots. Not even just like Democratic partisans, because they don't care if Trump slept with a porn star. Just like people with Trump derangement, maybe. But they don't even organically have the people that would care about like infidelity, especially like before he was even president. It's like a nothing burger. Most people don't care about that. Most people didn't care about Bill Clinton, and his thing was 50 times worse. And, you know, Bill Clinton's enemies did care about it. I remember when it happened. I didn't care. I admit it. Maybe I care more now. I think it reflects poorly on him. But, yeah, I didn't care. Most of America didn't care. Republicans were upset about it. Republicans cared. Conservatives cared. Nobody else cared. Right now, I think, like, nobody cares about the Stormy Daniels thing except some hardcore, like, hillbots and partisans, people pushing it in the news. I think the news people are probably bored with it, but they're pushing it because it's their job.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I remember I was 12 or 13 when Monica Lewinsky scandal broke out, and I thought it was the funniest thing ever. I thought it was hilarious. I thought that's the only reaction I had. I thought it was just funny. The jokes were endless. I didn't care about.
Well, and everybody knew it was maybe not when it was a long time ago when Kennedy was president, and maybe people didn't know at the time. But, for decades, later, after he died and everything, everybody knew about him and Marilyn Monroe and everything. And
Yeah.
I don't think he gets a lot of shit for that. Most people are like, wow, that's pretty cool, or whatever, or they don't care. So
what people didn't realize at the time was that Clinton was involved in a number of non-consensual.
Well, it did come out in the
right?
news somewhat, but they did, They did
Yeah, they
a
tamped it down.
number on, yeah, like calling them all bimbos, and Hillary Clinton, taking part and shaming
Trailer
them, calling
trash.
them bimbos and all that stuff. They called it like a bimbo eruption. There's like 3 or 4
Uh-huh.
like rape accusers come out because it's like probably because he's raping a lot of women. But anyway, it's a bimbo eruption. That's what they call it.
Yep. And now we have, unfortunately, we have the new generation of feminism, Farrakhan feminism. Everybody, join the wave. This was Lenin McCarthy. Check out his channel.
Thank you. Thanks
I'm
for
gonna
having me
put.
on too.
Let me see. Is it Lenin McCarthy, one word?
On YouTube, I would just put it in the search like as 2 words because I don't have the actual like direct link. On most social
Yeah.
media, I have it.
Let me see
But
here.
yeah, it's if you look up the name, you find my channel. I don't have like a special like link that does that though. I mean, with the
Okay.
name.
And you have like cartoons and stuff. Oh, this is interesting.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
It's the stuff with
yes.
the cartoon stuff is a bright red background, so it looks a little different. So you notice that the Comrade Tromsky stuff.
Yeah,
It's
I'll
like
definitely check
goofy,
this
like
out.
computer voice stuff. It's barely the newest one is. I need to get back to work. The newest one is the Jill Stein Christmas special, which is almost sort of a cartoon, meaning it has different pictures in it and shit. But the other ones are just like audio with subtitles. But anyway, it's a comedy thing.
Okay,
It has like
so
Russian computer voices. But anyway, thanks
check
for
him
letting me plug it.
check him out and check out the Hard Bastard channel, who we're both fans of, and he knows who both of us are. And I actually write for Hard News Network sometimes. So please, everybody, comment, share. Please check out his channel. Please subscribe to both of our channels, and have a great night. Good night, Lenin McCarthy.
Thank you.